Okay, in this section, I'm now going to ask you to undertake a little exercise of your own. Understand what your why is. By the end of this session, what I'd like you to have is a clear understanding of your why. It might not be your final why, but it will start to help you understand what is motivating you to watch this video and spend time investigating moving from being permanently employed to being a contractor. It's really important to ask yourself this question. Why? Well, because once you get used to that day rate and you're living off that income, if the market turns or you get to a retirement point or there's some other reason that you need to get out of contracting, it's really hard to get off the hamster wheel. We'll talk to you about exit planning a little later, but for now, unless you know why you're doing this, it's difficult to anchor yourself to achieving those goals. Everyone's why is unique and different and should not be the same, so after this course ends, I'd like you to reflect on that why and make sure you're happy with your goals. For now, I'd just like you to take 10 minutes to write yours down. Write down everything you can about your why. What are the things that are motivating you to want to leave permanent employment and go into contracting? It could be financial, it could be flexibility, there could be many reasons for this. So to be clear, in this exercise, I want you to understand what matters to you, what's important. Refer to the workbook, you can download that in the resource hub section. Take your important elements and design the way you want your life to be. Ask yourself, what do you need financially, so that's both a capital sum and the monthly income that you require to be able to live that life? And basically work backwards. So if you want, say, a 4-bedroom house in the country and that will cost you £600,000 or whatever it is in your neck of the woods, how much mortgage do I want to be left with? How much deposit does that require? So how much cash do I need as a result? What are the other elements of my life that are important to me? What holidays do I want to go on? What car I want to drive? What food do I want to eat? What restaurants do I want to go out to? How much would your ideal, realistic, but ideal lifestyle cost you each month? And what capital sum of money do you need to attain that as well? Put a definitive date on it. When do you want to do this by? Don't just be arbitrary, don't just say 5 years or 10 years. Think about it carefully, think about your family, your children, if you have children. Think about your circumstances. It might be 3.5 years, it might be 7 years, 2 months. Whatever that number is, when do you want to have achieved that thing by? So, now we've got that target amount of money and the time frame, we can work back and calculate the target day rate, duration and amount of days a year that you would be working to achieve that goal. So if I ended up with a cash lump sum to buy a house, how much do I need to earn and how long for? Pretty simple stuff, but I think it's really important to get to that. So if I give you 10 minutes now, put the video on pause and we'll come back after that. Welcome back. How did you find that exercise? It's quite hard, isn't it? Actually writing down specifically what you want from your life, how much it will cost you to get there, and then figuring all that out. It's quite a difficult exercise. It's not set in stone either, but it's important to have that guiding light to take you forward so you've got a clear, at least financial why to couple with your lifestyle that will drive you forward as a contractor. It's absolutely critical to do this part of the exercise. Please don't skip it. Please don't just carry on watching the video because it will diminish the impact it will have. It's really important to have those goals written down and understand what they are. Okay, now let's talk about the 6 pillars of a contracting mindset. What are these 6 pillars, I hear you ask? Well, I'm going to take you through each of the 6 pillars in turn. We'll also take you through the cheeky little 7th foundation as well. So, the first pillar of a great contracting mindset is purpose. Purpose links back to your why. Why are you doing this? What is your purpose in contracting? People can just blindly chase a day rate. It's a real error, and you'll start to learn why as we go through the rest of this video. But having the right mindset, one of the 6 pillars is understanding your why, your purpose. So that's purpose. The next pillar of the contracting mindset is profession. So this might be obvious, but the next thing you've got to be is really good at what you do. So, I'm sure everybody thinks that they do a great job, but do me a favour, have a little think about this. Think about the team you currently work in or you last worked in. Now, imagine that particular project that you're delivering is trying to land a plane that's going down. You need all the best resources in the team to do it, or you're all going to die. You need to chuck some people off the plane. This, by the way, is one of my favourite games. Who would, in your team right now, be the first person that you gently let fly into the air, alleviating the necessary weight? Who would be the second, and the third, and so on? You get my drift. Where were you? If you were last or even somewhere in the middle, then believe me, you are good enough. The simple fact that you are here today tells me that you're very serious about your profession. You need to be honest with yourself. Don't have false modesty. A lot of people who come to me are just suffering from underconfidence. Really, be objective. Rank yourself in realistic order at how good you are at your job against your peers. And if you're somewhere in the middle or higher than that, then believe me, you've perfectly got an adequate level of knowledge to take your profession forward as a day rate contractor. Learning and development. You've got to reinvest in yourself. So you might, for example, be the best Prince2 project manager in the world, but if no one wants a Prince2 project manager anymore and the whole world's gone agile, for example, which has happened in some organisations, what is the direction of travel? You're running a business now as a contractor, and you need to make sure you're offering the products that people want. Do you need to take one step back to take two steps forward? Or maybe you're quite happy to milk the ever-shrinking cash cow of a legacy technology or a particular skill that's going out of date. But how long does that realistically last? And does it fit with your why? It's really important to reinvest in yourself. Let's talk about planning next. So, whatever your profession, the next pillar of contracting mindset that you need to have is a badass personal planning attitude. So, you need to have the planning, organisation and admin skills for two main reasons. As I mentioned, you're running your own business now. That's your responsibility, and HMRC, Companies House and all of their other buddies take that very seriously and don't take any messing about. So they love nothing more than handing out fines for even the slightest indiscretion. So you need to be on top of your admin game, or you need a really good accountant. Either way, you need to be good at admin. So whatever work you're doing, you need to be all over it like a bad suit. Can't just rock into the office every day and get told what to do. If you want to build a long-term successful contracting career, you can't behave like that. You're going to be measured on your output now, whether that is said or unsaid. People will measure you as a contractor on what you produce, not just turning up every day. In fact, when I talk a little bit later about IR35 and the control element of that legislation, it's important that you're not told to do every day if you want to operate outside of IR35. But more on that later. You're getting paid the big bucks because you're the expert, and excuses don't really cut it. Like it or not, people want their pound of flesh, and permy jealousy can be a real problem. Worse still, I've known lots of contractors go into roles where it's not clear what is required. They might have a rough idea, but mostly they're just hoping that dropping you in will sort it out. So, you need to be proactive, ASAP, and ambiguity needs to be removed from your vocabulary. Pin stuff down, write it down, put it in front of people, even if they and ah and then say, I promise to do this by then. You need to become a master of getting things done. More on that later. And treat time vampires with the disdain that they deserve. I've recently come to think that the longest phrase in the English language may in fact be, have you got 5 minutes? At just 21 letters, that's 5 words, you could be forgiven for thinking that since doing my GCSE A grade in maths, it's high time invested in a new abacus. But I can assure you that have you got 5 minutes is absolutely one of the longest phrases that there is. You see, it's a phrase often used by one of the toughest anti-heroes against time efficiency, Mr. Time Vortex. Mr. Time Vortex lurks in the shadows of your office, near the water machine, near the lifts, in the foyer or behind an oversized houseplant, wherever it's possible to catch you off guard. If you succumb to his tractor beam just a few times, he will go stronger. He'll start dropping in on you at your desk. He'll disarm you with one of his superhero powers. He'll whip out a have you got a minute, or I just need a couple of minutes of your time, or I just have one quick question, He has a unique knack of pulling this stunt right when you're in the middle of doing something incredibly important, deep in concentration on a detailed piece of work. Mr. Time Vortex can also use his powers when he's not even physically present. The equivalent of loitering by your desk with just a quick question is the random email or text message. I say random because it is. Anytime he has a thought, he sends out an email. Every time he has a question, why not Google it or figure out yourself? Bang, he messages you. Unpunished, he'll drop in by you 3 or 4 times a day, 20 times a day. Each time he drops by, picture your dreams slipping away, because if you give in to his one quick question too often, that's exactly what will happen. It may feel rude and unreasonable to refuse him, but the truth is he deserves no courtesy whatsoever. He's telling you that his time is more important than yours. Whatever you're doing is unimportant and easily interrupted, according to him. But the good news is there's one small trick, a time efficiency superhero power, which you can whip out whenever he shows up. I'm busy right now. Let's meet at 3:15 for 15 minutes and I'll tackle everything on your list in one go. You may be thinking, I can't say that, but think about it. Time is one of the most precious commodities that there is and should be protected at all costs. You can always generate pretty much more of anything, including money, but the last time I checked, no one was making any more time. So, using this technique freezes Mr. Time Vortex in his tracks and begins to teach him a new discipline. Of course, he won't get it the first time, or maybe even not the second. He'll keep trying for a while, but if you persist over time, over and over again, eventually he'll get the message. Someday he'll call you and say something like, I have 5 things I need to go over with you. When can we get some time together? After you pick yourself up off the floor, you can congratulate yourself on having defeated him. So, next time he shows up, stick on your metaphorical underwear outside your clothes, stand loud and proud, and let him have it. Finally, on planning, later in this video, we'll talk about getting shit done. We will cover the technique I personally use to get better at this. I'm certainly not the finished article, and I'm on a constant journey of self-improvement in this regard. I think it's a lifelong learning piece, but I do believe that using these techniques does mean that you'll get more stuff out of your day than most do, and I think that's a critical component of being an excellent contractor. The 4th pillar of having a great contracting mindset is persistence. Contrary to popular belief, I am a human being. Sometimes I still get really down on myself and I let self-criticism come in. Some days you're up, some days you're down. But despite any of the mental tricks, techniques and habits you'll implement, sometimes you're just gonna feel a bit shit. So, the importance of your training, so to speak, is what happens on those shitty days. Everybody can feel great when everything is awesome, but I think it takes true courage, strength and determination to pick yourself up out of that mood and focus on what you have. It takes a great deal of strength to not just mope about. That's the easy thing to do. You need to focus on helping yourself through the emotions, getting yourself what you need, reframing the situation and seeing the positives you might not have seen before. Get back to moving forwards in life. When you begin self-improvement, conquering your anxiety and destroying your depression, you can get very angry and impatient. Let's face it, negative emotions, feeling unsure of yourself, all of those things suck. It'd be nice to have a magic pill so everything would be fixed in an instant, or you'd be super happy and know exactly what to do and never feel annoyed, anxious or depressed again, but that's just not realistic. Not only is it unfair to expect that of yourself, but it's impossible. There will still be times when you feel anxious or depressed, but you'll just get better at handling those times and feel better faster. If you've been a certain way for 10, 20, 30 years of your existence, can you really expect yourself to change that quickly? What's the point of comparing yourself to someone else who has their own host of problems and issues? Just makes no sense. I'm guilty of this. I get down on myself. Why can't I do this right? I feel like a fraud. Why can't I do it quicker? I say this when you get annoyed with myself and I'm trying to help people, but then I remind myself that even the greatest achievers and people amongst us have bad days. Everybody's just a human being. I remind myself about how far I've come, how I'm pushing on with my own personal dreams, and where many people would just give up. How much strength and determination it takes to do what I'm doing and what I focus on, the amount of effort I'm putting in to help myself versus actually achieving the exact goals is what I need to do. We all love goals because they're easy to measure. But even if you don't achieve those goals, you're forgetting about the sheer amount of effort you're putting in to help yourself. This is the true measure of real grit and what should be rewarded. So, what do you need to have to keep on going? Lots of patience and being a bit stubborn to never quit. Treat your mess ups with kindness. Look at your progress from a few years ago. Accept yourself as who you are, but keep moving in the direction you want to go. Everything worth doing takes a lot of work, but it is worth it. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So, in the case your self-critical voice is acting up, here's a piece of advice. Tell that voice to shut the fuck up. You deserve to be happy. You're pushing forward. You're doing your best. You're not perfect, but you are trying. That's more than most who accept whatever they've been given, even if they're unhappy. This is the long game. It takes time to change your habits. More on this later in Hide Like a Rider. The fifth pillar of a great contracting mindset is profit. In this section, I'm going to give you the perfect insight and actual usable mathematical formula to maximize your contract income in relation to your day rate choices. But first, an intro song. When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never really understood the mechanics of day rate pay. But now those days are gone, now I know why Nana used to push that fine old saying, a bird in hand's worth two in bush. With apologies to my fellow Northwest neighbours for butchering that much loved classic, if you're in the business of day rate contracting, then I'm about to reveal to you some information that might quite literally change the way you think about how you position yourself in the market, with a particular reference to the rather sensitive topic of day rate. Over the last 15 years, I've worked with a lot of day rate contractors. Project managers, business analysts, developers, testers, program directors, program managers, architects, the list goes on. I've also been known to go out for a pint or two with a lot of these people, and I've found mild lubrication by an alcoholic beverage to grease the wheels of the topic of day rate, which most would typically not discuss in a professional context. This is, of course, not surprising. What is surprising to me is that almost all of these highly intelligent, professional, and generally financially comfortable group of people mostly display quite limited commercial acumen in relation to maximising the earnings of their limited company, and thus their own earnings. Moreover, I've found that most of the time this is driven by their limbic-brained, emotional inner chimp, rather than their eminently more logical, reasonable and financially astute prefrontal cortex human brain. If you've no idea what I'm talking about there, more on this in Hide Like a Rider. Best explained by way of example, let me introduce you to Colin Contractor. Colin is a great project manager. He's been in the game for a few years now, earning around £500 a day for his excellent skills, and is generally a very sensible, detail-oriented, clever chap. Colin has done an excellent job for his current client. They're very happy with him and have renewed his contract a few times, increasing his rate by 10% along the way, so he's ended up on £550 a day. A great rate, I'm sure you'll agree. However, now the client has completed the project they had with Colin, they've got no further need of his services and they've wished him well on his future journey. Buoyed by his success and experience, Colin decides his time's now arbitrarily worth £600 a day. As a diligent and responsible guy, Colin updates his CV straight away and starts getting into contact with his network and applying for roles on job boards to find some new work. I'm sure you all know someone a bit like Colin. Within a few days, Colin gets an email from a new client, really keen to speak to him about a juicy new opportunity to deliver a long-term contract paying £500 a day, maybe £525 for the right candidate. Colin is outraged by the barefaced cheek of such a derisory offer and declines offhand. Colin then spends the next 7 weeks watching Homes Under the Hammer in his underpants and eventually lands a gig with a client willing to pay the £600 a day after. How long do you think it would take Colin to break even and turn over more in his limited company on the £600 a day contract versus immediately accepting the 525 contract? You might be shocked to know the answer is 14 months. That's 280 billable days to be precise. Now, I know that there are many variables to consider here. Role and responsibilities, stress, length of contract, location, etc. But for the purpose of this exercise, let's leave those to one side. All I'll waffle on about is pure, cold, hard cash in relation to this contract. You see, Colin, despite his intelligence, wasn't listening in maths class when the teacher explained the concept of relative velocity. Or, to put it a different way, that problem that you may have heard of where if a truck leaves town travelling at say 50 miles an hour, heading for a town 300 miles away, and a sports car leaves the same town 2 hours later, travelling at 70 miles an hour, aiming for the same location, who gets there first? That sort of problem. Or you may have heard the tortoise and the hare fable. The answer is, of course, that the tortoise and the truck wins. Slow and steady wins the race is the moral of those stories. You can insert whatever metaphor you like here. The outcome is still the same. Luckily for you, I was a little swot at school, listening intently and absorbing everything like a sponge in maths class. And that's enabled me to create this little formula for you today. So, let's use our old friend mathematics to help us solve the problem. I'll go slowly and give you all the details. Okay, if D is your desired day rate, A is the rate you've actually been offered or might consider, T is the time it takes for there to be a better financial outcome, and P is the time passed since you started a contract rate, then, formula's on screen now, T equals PA divided by D minus A plus P. So, I know not everybody's an expert at algebra. Let me take you through the Colin example. So T, time, is 35 days times 525 divided by 600 minus 525 plus 35 days. So that would be £18,375 divided by £75 plus 35 days. That makes T 280 days. You could try that out with your own examples and your own experiences. The formula holds true. It's a really useful formula to use to calculate what is effectively the opportunity cost of hanging out for a better rate than taking something that's available sooner. Like I say, there are many variables to consider. All we're talking about here is pure financial situation. So, 280 days based on an average of 20 billable days per month, which is about right, is 14 months wowzers. Now, because I'm a nice guy who doesn't wish to see you tie yourself up in algebraic knots, what we've done is we've created a handy spreadsheet which you can download from our resource hub, where you can just put in those 4 different variables, but we've shown you the maths behind it so you can work it out for yourself. So it calculates the difference in potential earnings between any 2 day rates over 12 months, the time to break even between 2 day rates, the difference between 2 day rates after 1 year in total and by month, and you'll find the link, as I say, in the resource hub. The 6th pillar of a contracting mindset is profile. Profile is all about marketing, and we're going to go into this in some detail later, but I'll leave you with this little nugget to think on. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Underpinning the 6 pillars of a contracting mindset is delivery. So, you must make it a personal mantra to communicate and say you'll do what you say you'll do. Whatever your personal value set, you need to become a no excuse delivery machine, because that's how you'll be measured. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail in the getting shit done section of this video.